Turns out wheatgrass actually absorbs all of the minerals that are available, like 90 minerals are in wheatgrass. Okay, some things like apples and stuff might have 60, 70, or 40. There's a lot of plants that have different ones. And basically, that's why we gravitate to certain plants, because certain plants accumulate minerals more than others. Bananas accumulate potassium more than any other plant. Also, avocados accumulate potassium. They need potassium. And so, like when you're fertilizing something like a banana, and I'll testify that Richard's bananas are amazing, he mulched them with macnut husks, which are very, very high in potassium. So obviously macnuts need potassium because they create a husk and this thing. So it's like we can look at it, we can reverse engineer it, or we can go backwards or forwards or whatever. We need minerals, and we need the right balance of minerals to grow healthy food, to have healthy soil, to grow our, it's like when you grow something like burdock. And burdock is, I love burdock. Burdock is a great root. When it gets about a half an inch or an inch, the root gets about that big, and it's really long. It can be 3-4 feet long. If you have deep soil, you can pull it out if it's in rock. You get, pieces of it, and you're kind of digging it out. It's crazy, but when it gets a little bigger, we chop it up and we make teas with it, the blood purifier. But what I found is in our soils, if you have a sort of pretty good soil, and you don't want, in your garden, and you haven't really got it all planted, plant some burdock. 3 or 4 months, pull the burdock out, and believe me, it makes the soil better. It's one of those plants that you can plant, if you know you're not going to garden for a few months, plant it all in burdock. And then come in and harvest the burdock, make tea or give it away or eat it. It's great. I mean, it's like you can cut it up and eat it raw like a carrot, or you can, depending on the age of it, burdock is great. But when you pull it up, your garden is going to be nicer. And other plants that I like to do that if I'm going to abandon the garden is pumpkins. Pumpkins have a natural herbicide in them. You can let pumpkins take over your whole garden. You'll have very, very few weeds. And then when you're ready to replant your garden, you'll have pumpkins. And then just the tips of pumpkins are an excellent vegetable. So there's always going to be a food there that you don't have to work so hard. Because I think a balance, when you have a subsistence farm, you're going to be taking care of certain things, obviously, so you can make some money. You can take certain things because you know you got to eat them. And then a lot of your farm you're just going to let go, and hopefully you're going to have some food in there someday to go get. So we use sweet potatoes that way sometimes in our garden.
Thistle on the mainland.
What?
Thistle on the mainland.
Thistle? What can you do with thistle?
Well, it's a pioneer species, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to be mining minerals and
and then you can put that one
soil.
right back. Yeah, but thistles, everyone hates thistles.
They go out and they spray and
So basically, a pioneer species is what we have here all the time because of the Roundup use. Every time you use Roundup, you're going to end up with a pioneer species. And I've seen lots of thistle on rounded up land, too. Thistle comes in pretty fast.
Doing their work,
yeah. Yeah, and that is the point. No weed is bad, bad, bad. And I do look at weeds as miners of minerals. In fact, I hate African tulip trees, but I'm not going to go poison it and kill it. I'll just keep cutting it down because every 3 months it's got a big top on it that I cut down and it breaks down almost immediately. I look at it as almost like a mineral well. It's a great thing for mulching. Kukui nuts are like that. The Hawaiians use kukui nut trees like crazy to make their garden. The Hawaiians didn't use any animal products. And one last question. Last week someone called in right at the end, and I think we'd already closed it down. They wanted to have some advice on what to fertilize with if you don't want to use animal products. So one of the important ones is obviously rock dust. Okay. I'm going to give you organic names of fertilizers that don't contain animal products. Something like calcium phosphate. A lot of times you'll use phosphate. It comes from bone meal. Bone meal can be high in heavy metals. It also comes from feedlot animals, and I'm not really into that. So, if you want phosphate, calcium phosphate, I think the one they sell over here a lot is called the Montana Reactive Phosphate. It's the 030, if you're asking for a number. There's another one called colloidal clay phosphate, Fosco, I think it's called. And that's really the overburden over this rock phosphate. So it contains more clay. It has a little less phosphorus. But, interestingly enough, it's really wonderful for our soils over here. So if you can afford it, it's a little more expensive. Fosco is, I think, like a 2% or something, or 0.20. That's the amount of phosphate that is soluble. Remember, these materials might contain 20-25% phosphate. That's not soluble, but in our soils eventually will become soluble. So even if you apply a 0.30, think of it more of as a 0.20-25 year. And that way, for the long term kind of thing, not for the quick hit. And then a source of potassium would be, there's two that come into mind right away as far as bag fertilizer, would be potassium sulfate, and one called sulfomag or K-mag. It's sulfate of potash of magnesium. So it contains magnesium and it contains potassium. And if you have a low magnesium, it's really great, but I think avocados really love it anyway. And if you've got avocados that are really good, that aren't getting that good anymore, throw 20 pounds of sulfomag on it, and you'd be very surprised. Really good for fruiting trees and stuff, but specifically for avocados. But if you feel you have a potassium deficiency, and everybody does, potassium is one of the major deficient things over here. Think about throwing between 100 to 200 pounds. Sometimes if you're cropping something like coffee, you might have to put 300 or 400 pounds of potassium sulfate per acre. And it really helps in the garden. So I'll have a little mix that will always sprinkle out of calcium phosphate and potassium sulfate. Now, the hard part to do if you want to fertilize your garden using things that aren't animal products, if they're nitrogen, is for nitrogen. And usually, people are using fish emulsion or chicken manure, stuff like that, feather meal, cow poop or whatever. The best source of nitrogen, if you want to do it without animal products, I used to believe was corn gluten. Unfortunately, corn now is made GMO, so if you have a problem with GMO corn, you might have a problem with corn gluten. That's about a 10%, 000. The nice thing about corn gluten is University of Iowa showed that the corn gluten, when it's in the soil, actually keeps seeds from germinating. So if you've got a garden that you're putting in and you're putting plugs in, which means you're growing your vegetables maybe in a tray and then dropping them in, you're not direct seeding, corn gluten is an excellent amendment to put in. Obviously, we could get into an hour or 2-hour discussion on what are the ramifications of putting GMO corn gluten in your garden. I'll save that for the next show if someone wants to talk about GMOs on that level. But I think I've gone on here now for an hour. And I think we're going to call an end to this and let everybody know that we're doing the Ag Show, History Show on Saturdays at 6 o'clock, where we're going to talk more about the politics of agriculture. And I'm sorry we didn't have the phones working this time, but next Saturday we will. And if you've got questions about agriculture, please call in then and we'll talk about it. And I want to remind everybody, you've got a phone call. Take it. Question. I'll take it. Okay, got a phone call. I'm going to take it. Hello?
You got to press the green button.
Where's the green button? Okay. Hello? You there? Nobody's there. That's a weird phone. And so we're going to have an open house here on Sunday. This is coming up. So I'll announce it again on Saturday. But on Sunday we're going to have an open house, and I really want to invite everybody that listens to this station to come on up, even for just a little while, and see what's going on and meet your neighbors. And then Lorenzo at 4 o'clock is going to be having our songwriters showcase and see some of the local talent performing original songs and entertainment. I think it's going to be a potluck. We're also going to eat some of the fruits off this land. And I'm going to be here to help people if they got any agriculture questions. I'm hoping, Pete, maybe we'll even plant a garden while people are up here. Who knows what's going to happen. We'll leave it really wide open. We've got an open house up here. Our phone number is 328-7441. I'm hoping that everybody that hears this show and listens to the music on this station comes up for just even a little while. Bring your kids, bring your whole family, and let's have some fun on Sunday. So I want to thank Dustin for engineering, and we're all good, and we're going to bid you a good aloha and have a good next few days.